Hey there, this is Kristen Haynes with thewaywardhome.com, and thanks so much for tuning into this session of the Van Life Summit. So today I'm talking to Johnny Mellon, who had an epic van life adventure without even owning a van. So Johnny, we're really excited you're here to talk about this.
Hi, Kristen. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the Van Life Summit this year. And yeah, that's exactly right. So, I've been able to rent vans along my travels without owning a van, so to speak. So that's been great. And to rewind a little bit, I'm from the Gold Coast in Australia, and when I was able to get my license, I actually used to own a van, and I converted a van myself. So I guess that's where the passion for overland travel began. Um, and yeah, growing up in the east coast of Australia, there's a lot of beaches, a lot of national parks, waterfalls, things like that. So in between work, me and my friends, would go on like little road trips down the coast and live out of our vans. Like they weren't massive motorhomes, just your standard panel van with a bed and little gas cooker in the back. So that was great. And yeah, so growing up there was always outdoors, surfing, skating, into photography. And I was very involved in the van life community. This is going back probably 2012, 2013, and 14, so 10 years ago now. And that's when, Instagram was sort of kicking off and a lot of van life pages. So myself and my friends as well were getting a lot of sort of reposts from these big pages and a lot of, questions from people that weren't doing van life and interested to know. So that was really great being involved in that. But I guess I wouldn't say sadly, but like I kind of fell off that wagon because I decided that I wanted to move abroad, live abroad, and start traveling full time. And I started an online business, which is a travel blog that I have now. I do a lot of photography and work with tourism boards, so that's become my full time gig. So unfortunately, I had to sell the van that I had, and those funds allowed me to get overseas and yeah, start creating content on the blog and Instagram and things like that. So but then I realized like I missed the van life. So, abroad in all these different countries I was going to, I was trying to do overland travel wherever I could. So, that meant having to rent a van, which is great. Like I've been using Travelers Autobahn. If anyone is familiar with them, they've got vans available in the US, also Australia and New Zealand. They've just launched in Japan now, I believe, as well. So yeah, they've been really great to work with and rent vans from all over the world on my trips.
That's cool. Yeah, I've started to see some more of the Travelers Auto Barn vans driving around, California and Oregon. I feel like they're, they're just becoming more and more popular. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what they look like and what they're like inside, what kind of amenities they have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, even just like from a user's experience on their website, it's really easy to find, a van in, the country that you're planning on traveling to. So, searching for the dates, they've got great customer support as well. If you ever need to reach out to them and ask any questions before booking and things like that. Yeah, so plenty of pickup and drop off locations, very affordable and competitive rates compared to some other companies out there. And yeah, I found them just really comfortable inside, reliable, easy to drive. They're most of them, I would say all of them, depending on which model of van that you get, they're fully equipped. So they've got a seating area that transforms into a double bed. That's in the Cougar camper van. I believe some of other of their vans, they may already have the bed that's just fully fixed. And then also they've got like a fridge and freezer that runs on solar, the gas stove top, a microwave, kitchen sink, running water, cooking utensils, all the bedding. If it's winter, they provide a heater as well and a heated blanket, which was great because I traveled in the US during winter and it was very cold. But those, the heater and the heated blanket kept us warm at night. They also have like USB power outlets, a 24-volt power that you can hook up to when you're plugged into a campsite through the electricity. Lots of storage, and I could go on. There's many more features inside these vans.
Cool. And is it a big enough van that you can stand up in it and walk around in it?
Yeah, so the Cougar camper van, which is the main one that I usually go for, I think it sleeps up to three or maybe even four people, but it's perfect for two people. because it allows you to have more storage up in the top part. And yeah, that you can fully stand up in them. Otherwise, the more budget ones, they're a more of a panel van, so they don't have the high top roof capacity. So you can't stand up in those, unfortunately. But depending on how long the trip is that you're doing as well, if you're only doing a 5 day trip or something like that, maybe the more budget ones would be come in handy. And yeah, you don't really need to be standing up, but for like anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks or even longer, like I always go for the one that you can stand up in. It's more livable and yeah, just more comfortable as well.
Totally. And you took a few trips in these vans, or a couple so far at least. Tell us a little bit about like where you went in one of these vans.
Yeah, so the first trip I did with Travelers Autobahn was in the east coast of Australia. So I picked up the van in Brisbane and drove it all the way down to the south coast, New South Wales. I took it out to Mount Kosciuszko, which is where the snowfields are in Australia. So that was a 3 or 4 week trip, I believe. And it pretty much just hugged the coastline all the way down, did a few like day trips inland to the hinterland areas to visit some waterfalls and go on some hikes and things like that. So that's always a great trip, I think, in Australia, is just hugging the coastline, and there's lots of things to see and do along the way. And another trip I did with him, as I mentioned, was the Southwest USA states. So I actually picked up the van in LA, and I had it for 4 weeks. So yeah, headed north first up to San Fran, and then cut across over into Yosemite Valley. Also went all the way down to, I believe it was Sequoia,
Mhm.
and then inland even more further into Vegas and Zion, and then looped back around down into Arizona, Sedona, and then back to the coastline in LA 4 weeks later. So that was a mammoth trip, and didn't have any issues with the van at all. Like it, unlimited miles as well, which is great. So you can just go anywhere in the time frame that you've booked it for. And then the trip I'm doing next month will be in New Zealand. So I've got a rental for 2 weeks in the North Islands. So that's going to be a great trip. I haven't fully planned out the itinerary, but I have done a van trip in the in New Zealand about 8 years ago now, where I actually purchased a van because I knew I was going to be there for 2 months. So I'm hoping, to follow a similar route, coastlines, inland to some of the lakes, and yeah, just have a great time.
That's so cool. I think that's such a neat way to travel for people to keep in mind that not only can you do it here in the States, but you can go to a foreign country and rent a van like this. It's way better than a hotel, right?
Absolutely, and just overland travel in general. You really appreciate the smaller moments. I know, people want to like some, tips I always like to say is travel slow. You don't always have to be trying to cram in so many things into the time frame that you have to take a holiday or take a trip. Yeah, you would definitely appreciate traveling slower and enjoying the smaller moments for sure. And yeah, just I feel like in any country where it's possible, there's like, especially the US, especially Australia, New Zealand, there's such like I guess countries where it's so easy to travel overland. Whereas I guess if you're going to like the Maldives or something like that, or even Indonesia, it's not well set up for camper van trips. And because there are, lots of islands, you can't, it makes it more difficult to sort of cross over to other islands when you're traveling overland. So there are definitely some countries that are better than other, and a lot more facilities to cater for people traveling in a van as well.
Yeah. And when you were doing this, did you mostly stay in campgrounds or did you take the van out boondocking or what did you do?
For the most part, I would say campgrounds, especially in Australia, very affordable. The US was actually, we found some of the campsites to be more expensive than a motel,
No.
which kind of, yeah, was interesting to me. But because it was winter, we really needed to be plugged into the campsites to be able to run that heater. But in saying that, like, it's always good to get off the beaten track, and I think it's called, I'm not sure the term in the States for like the free camp zones.
Mhm.
But I know there are a lot of those around, especially if you have a van with solar, which the Travelers Autobahn van did in the US. So that was great. We did spend a few nights outside of camp zones, and yeah, I feel like you get a better view that way too, a better location. Like you can wake up to the ocean, or with an epic view of the mountain out the back window, something like that. So yeah, I like to mix it up a little bit between the two.
Yeah, that's usually what we do as well. It's kind of nice to have the amenities of a campground, but then going out and wild camping somewhere is free and
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
beautiful. And that's cool. These vans come with solar in the States. That seems like a definite benefit for,
absolutely.
especially for California and the Southwest. There's a good amount of sun in those areas for you to keep that thing charged. So
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, cool. So, what made you choose Travelers Autobarn in the first place? I know there's tons of rental companies out there, but why did you gravitate toward them?
I think it was word of mouth, going back to the trip I did in Australia first with them. And yeah, just, spoken to some friends that rented from them. And um, yeah, like they just said they had a great time, had no issues with it. And I guess, the competitive rates as well was definitely, stood out amongst other rentals.
Yeah, and same with the unlimited miles you mentioned, because I know
And
some
that too,
companies like cap you at 100, and that's you're not going to get anywhere at
right?
100 miles, like in these these big countries and coastlines and stuff. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
So yeah, that's
positive.
definitely an added advantage for sure.
Yeah, totally. So New Zealand, that sounds very interesting. I know a lot of people love doing camper van rentals over there. So, what are some of the highlights of New Zealand that why do you want to go there?
For one, I've got a lot of family in New Zealand, so I like to go back every once in a few. It's been actually, I can't remember, 2015 since I was last there. So it's been a long time since I've seen family over there. So that's a big part of why I want to go back next month. And apart from that, I feel the landscapes there are just like the US and the national parks in the US. They're just phenomenal. Like Australia is great for its coastlines, but it doesn't have really any big mountains or glaciers and things like that. So yeah, that's definitely some landscapes I want to go and photograph. And since starting the blog and taking up photography and things like that, I want to go back and document the trips that we do and put out content for my readers because that last trip I did, it was before I was into blogging and social media. And I was just on a holiday, basically, didn't take many photos. So yeah, I want to go back and see it all with a fresh eye.
Oh, cool. You're gonna have some
Yeah.
stunning photos of New Zealand. That's gonna be fun to look at.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I hope
Yeah.
so.
Oh,
Hopefully the weather's good. I know they're getting some pretty unforeseen weather with the floods and some cyclones, things like that. So with that said, like I hope hopefully it clears up and I hope everything's okay. I mean, we might even find ourselves in a region where there might be the need for help, so we might go and volunteer
mhm.
if we can do something like that and help out the communities there as well.
Totally. Very cool. And like, how does it feel to be in a rental van after you had your own van for a while? Like, what are some of the differences?
I would say it's the setups are they're very functional, but not as homely as the van a van would be if you were to convert it yourself. And it all comes down to as well, like when you are converting a van, what sort of hobbies you're into, and things to think about when it comes to storage. Like for me, I surf, so in the van that I had surfboard racks mounted on the inside, also the roof racks on top, just small things like that to make it more functional and homely. Tailored towards, I guess, your hobbies and the things that you enjoy, like a bookshelf and things like that.
Yeah, and so I'm curious because yeah, we carry like 5 boards on our van as well, like for surfing and windsurfing and paddleboarding and really a lot of water sports. So does the
Yeah,
Travelers Autobarn van have a place to put a surfboard on it, like a rack at all, or did they not come with those?
that's a great question, and we actually were able to, because we went down to the snow as I mentioned in the van. So there's plenty of storage where we were able to put our snowboards in. We threw our surfboards in there as well. We weren't able to put them on top of the van. They didn't have, because it was the high top. They didn't have any rack or cases up there. So we had them slotted down the middle corridor in the van, and it fit perfectly as well for when we converted the couch into a bed and the table into the bed. So it was, we managed. And then when we pulled up to a spot, we would just, take the boards out, slide them under the van. And that way we had, more of like a thoroughfare in the back
Mhm.
of the van. So it wasn't getting in the way at all.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And do these vans come with any sort of like bathroom or shower units or anything?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. With their larger vans, they might have those facilities, but in the Cougar camper van, The one that I've only rented, there's none of that. So yeah, usually, that's, I guess, the benefits of parking up at a campsite, just being able to use those facilities, even things like laundry as well. These campsites have washing machines and dryers, and yeah, so it is something to, I guess, take into consideration when booking a van, or converting a van, if you want to have those luxuries.
I know they definitely we
Yeah,
don't have that either. We have a solar shower in our van, so
yeah.
sometimes going to a campground is nice and taking a long hot shower, but we tend to rough it. But definitely something for
Yeah, yeah.
people to consider when choosing a van rental. So
For sure. I think they do have those camp showers that you can fill up with water, and the portable ones, as you said. So
yeah.
otherwise, if you're on the coastline, especially in Australia, and I'm sure the US as well, down at the beaches, they have, they've got toilets there, they've got freshwater showers, so it's not
Hmm.
hard to find a spot to scrub up.
Yep, I totally agree. They're everywhere, so that's very positive. Yeah. So, do you have any tips for people who are thinking of renting vans? Like, what should they look for in a van?
Yeah, I mean, as the benefits we've spoken about, like looking for something with unlimited miles, look at maybe booking in the off season. As I said, I traveled the US in winter, and yeah, it was, there was plenty of vans available. Plus, at all of the national parks, there was fewer tourists, so it was easy, to, I guess, get great shots without a lot of people around. And also finding a campsite as well, like during the off season, it's a lot easier. Whereas I'm sure, in the US, I've heard in the summer it can be very hard to find a spot if you're, and you want to be flexible as well. Like you may have a change of plans, you want to go to Yosemite tomorrow, but you try and book and there's nowhere for you to stay. So I think just, yeah, really planning ahead, having a bit of an itinerary, making sure you're booking in those campsites if you need them, well in advance. And yeah, again, just taking it slow. You may want to, see 10 places in a week, but cut that down to 5 and spend a couple of days in each of those spots and really get to know a place as well.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes I recommend that people go and rent a van before they, buy one or convert one. What do you think about that as kind of test driving vans beforehand?
Oh, absolutely. Like it's easy to get caught up in social media when you see, people actually living and traveling in a van. But sometimes you see the behind the scenes, like, things are just everywhere. Like whereas like how it's portrayed sometimes, it's all the good stuff. But yeah, like for sure, definitely rent a van for a week or two, or even a few days, or even if you have a friend that has a van, just ask to borrow it, and see if it's something for you. Um, and yeah, like you really have to um, be happy with just, I guess, like living in a small space for one.
Hmm.
Packing minimal, like you can't have, if it's winter, you can't have 10 jackets. Maybe you just have 1 or 2 jackets and be fine with, having to wear those like throughout the week or whatever. So yeah, I agree with you with what you said, is to rent one before you go and buy one. Yeah.
Yeah, it does look a certain way on social media. And when you get in the van, it's wonderful and also difficult at the same time. And
Yeah.
sometimes people don't realize that part.
Yeah.
So it's good to go experience trying to find the campsites every day and, the right bathroom facilities and stuff. So
Yeah, totally.
a good reason to rent. So cool. So you live kind of a hybrid model now, right? Where you're a nomad, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I've
Yeah.
been living on the roads. Well, I say on the road, living abroad, traveling, and working online since 2017. So coming into, yeah, the 6th year of digital nomadism.
Wow, cool. And so between the van rentals, what kinds of facilities are you typically staying in?
Usually like an Airbnb, whether it's, if I travel with my partner. So if we're going somewhere for a month, we'll try and book maybe 1 or 2 places within that country or destination, and have a base. And then from there, just do like smaller day trips or even a multi-day hike or something, leave, the bulk of our luggage in the accommodation, and then take off, just with a small backpack or something like that. Otherwise, yeah, with when we're traveling full time, what I mean by that is like we have a base in Bali, so we've got a villa that we're renting there, and when we're not there, we're we're just living out of our suitcases basically. So um, and when we're not staying in a place for a month, we're just basically just from hotel to hotel, or sometimes we get collaborations with resorts and things like that, and trips with tourism boards where they'll invite us out to a destination for a week. So all of the logistics and accommodation is covered. So
Mhm.
it's a bit here, there, and everywhere. A bit of a challenge, but it's also, keeps things interesting, keeps life fun, and yeah, it's but yeah, definitely at some point, like would love to have another van again, whether that be probably Australia, I would say, because I've still got my family and friends there. So somewhere to store it. And there's more of Australia that I want to see as well.
Well, it sounds like such an interesting lifestyle, and it's a good reminder that people don't have to be a full-time van lifer. They can be a full-time nomad. But
Exactly.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of different ways to put the parts together, and I think that's a good reminder. So, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
that's cool. And some people do like pet sitting and other ways of travel where it's very affordable, and then you can go get in the van for a while. So I think that's really neat.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's so many ways. Like you don't have to start an online business to be able to travel and work full time. Like as you said, you can do house sitting, house swaps, things like that. There's a lot of ways that you can make it happen if it is something that is of interest to you, or even, moving abroad and like purchasing a van if you want to spend a few months in a country, and then you can sell the van when you leave as well. So
Yeah, that's good advice too. You could do that in New Zealand, Australia, or Europe, or wherever. Just purchase a cheaper van for a little while and resell.
that's it for sure. And then, it's like free accommodation for that whole time that you're in that destination,
Yeah, very
apart from
cool.
like the fuel costs and things like that. But for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, at least you get to cook a lot of your own food, so I think that helps with the costs a little bit. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
that's helpful.
Very
Cool.
budget friendly.
Yeah, after New Zealand, do you have any other van trips planned, or is that it for the foreseeable future?
After New Zealand, we're heading back over to first to the Maldives and then to Europe for a few months. And we're actually hoping to get a van for a month. My partner's parents are from Switzerland, and they live there, so we're going to try and get a van for a month in June and try to do some travels around Switzerland in a van. And we've done a lot of trips throughout Switzerland, like by train, just by car, like some day trips, but never like in the camper van. So that's definitely something that we want to achieve this year, and yeah, and spend some time on the road over there, because the landscapes and lakes and everything over there is just phenomenal.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Very cool. Yeah. So where can people find you online to follow all your adventures?
I would say definitely my main channel is Instagram. So at Johnny Melon, that's JONNY.melon, as in watermelon. And the blog as well is johnnymelon.com.
Cool. Well, I look forward to watching all your journeys and seeing the Travelers Auto Barn vans. They're also a sponsor of the summit, which I should mention because they're super awesome. And I'm excited to go try one. I might have to
Absolutely.
I think I have to do a New Zealand trip in one of those. I really want to
Oh,
go
for
there.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I'll be
So,
doing some itineraries from there. So yeah, maybe I can send those across to you, get some inspo. But yeah,
yeah.
there's lots of great trips to be had, and yeah, Travelers Autobahn, huge shout out because they've been amazing, and yeah, totally recommend them. I'll be using them, on most of my trips where they offer, pick up and drop off locations. So
And I do like that. That's something else I wanted to mention that you can pick up and drop off in different places with them. Is that correct? At different
yeah,
hubs?
exactly. Yeah, for sure. I think there is a small fee if you're dropping it off in a different location, but it's nothing outrageous. Maybe $50 or $100 or something like that, which is great when you're in a destination where you can, if you're flying into say Auckland and then you want to fly out from Christchurch in the South Island of New Zealand, that's an option, and it just gives you more flexibility, more freedom, as opposed to having to do like a round trip.
Totally. That's also a very good point. So cool. I'm glad we got to talk about Travelers Auto Barn, and hopefully everybody will go check them out if they want to rent a van. So a really cool
For
way to do
sure.
the van lifestyle.
Definitely. Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for having me, Kristen.